budget, past district governor, and I've got the daunting task of following Stephen Beer, who is the current district Rotary Foundation chair. Stephen has been phenomenal, has been chasing this $1 million dinner, which will materialize next month. And when the numbers come out, I think this district will have so much to be proud of, and the impact is going to be so significant. And a lot of folks on this call have been an integral part of that. And Stephen built a strong team. Kenny and Rudy are taking a few of them away on their leadership journeys. So we're rebuilding, but with that solid foundation, we are in good shape to really continue to execute at a high level in District 7600. Today's presenters are phenomenal members of that team. They are individuals that have been part of the district foundation committee for a number of years. And I'm going to briefly comment on that. You'll have a chance to see them and hear them later on in the presentation. But leading the entire band of merry gentlemen and gentlewomen, or whatever favorite pronoun you may want to use, is Shell Douglas. Shell is our grant chair, and she has been handling that job for a couple of years while she's still juggling a variety of challenges. She's living out of the district, but comes back in on the weekends. She's available, Zoom calls. She's done some amazing things throughout the world with global grants, and she is a kinder and gentler district grants chair. We often have individuals that are extreme rule followers, but she finds a way, hopefully generally, to say yes. And so, Shell, thank you for all you do for the district and the district foundation committee. We also have on the team Raghavan. I'm not going to pronounce his last name. I'm just going to say Raghavan. Raghavan's amazing too. Raghavan is our technical wizard. He is the individual that we can turn to make sure all the PowerPoints get done on time. We were in an edit call a couple of weeks ago, and as we were speaking, he was changing the slides. He gets it done quickly, effectively. He's the genius behind getting all the links out on time, getting this posted. He also is going to be in charge of our district grant committee. And that's where a lot of the dirty work occurs. That's where the applications get submitted. That's where individuals gather around to review them, to make sure that they meet the qualifications and the policies of the district, and make the tough decisions on which of the applications will receive funding. He has been active in this role for a couple of years, both on the committee and supporting the district foundation committee in a variety of ways. Raghavan, thank you for all you do, and thank you for helping put this particular grants management seminar on. The last presenter today is Mike Little. Mike, it's interesting. I was district grants chair way back in the days of Jim Probstorfer when he was the district Rotary Foundation chair. Mike was still part of the team. He's been instrumental in our scholarships. Scholarships have changed over the last decade or so, and he has been with us all along the way, been a vital part of making sure we understand the transitions and Peace Scholars. I've had a lot of meetings with him over the years as he's championed individuals. It's a very difficult area because it involves a lot of moving parts, a lot of international pieces, but he's got a passion for it, and he's going to talk about how we can tee that up here at the district level in many ways. I want to, before we go into the granular details, tell you why grants management seminars are held every year. The first and most primary reason, or the first and primary reason, is that it's a requirement. 10 years ago, when Rotary International decided to sort of decentralize the process and allow districts to control it, they wanted to make sure that districts paid attention to the fiduciary responsibilities that come hand in glove with receiving money provided by individuals all over the world, and primarily our district for DDF funds. And to do that, we are required to get certain information and agreements from clubs. We're required on an annual basis to put on a grants management seminar, and we're required to mandate that any club that's applying for a grant, global and district, that they have attended at least one individual by RI regulations, a grants management seminar. So that's why we hold it every year. You may look at it, some of the information may look somewhat familiar, but as I was mentioning to the group before we started, every year there is a change. And if you don't pay attention to the changes, you may slip up and your application may be a little off. And if that occurs, a great application and impact in the community may not occur. So that is the purpose of the grants management seminar. We do it early in the cycle because if we don't get what's called a spending plan submitted to RI early in the process, then we are delayed in getting the money that can be put to good use in the district. So we start the process early. Sometimes it's difficult with all the background noise to get club leadership attention as to these deadlines. These deadlines are very, very important. We're going to mention them a number of times throughout this presentation. But if you're on this call today and you want to apply for a district grant, not as much global, but district grant, you need to pay attention to these deadlines because if you miss them, your application will not be accepted in this upcoming year, and an opportunity will also fall by the wayside. I'd also like to mention, and again, I think Shell's going to mention it a little bit later on, every Rotary International year, this year, 2022, 2023, the amount of money we have for district grants changes based on the amount of money raised 3 years prior. So it changes. Some years we will have more money than others, and as a result, we're not able on some occasions to fund every great application that's received. So we're going to challenge everybody in this call to make sure that you think creatively, think about impact, and create applications that will have the wow factor. So when the grants committee receives it, you'll have an opportunity to shine and to receive the funds. Last year, we had a process where we actually tried to provide money for every grant that was submitted by essentially chopping the amounts. Leadership that's going in, Kenny and his team would prefer larger, more impactful. That's not to say others will be denied, but we're striving to get those type of grants, those kind of projects that we all can sort of get behind and see are moving the needle. So we want to start early. We want to challenge you early. And that's why in this President's Weekend, we're convening to talk about how do you apply for a district grant and what is a global grant about, so you can get everything lined up and put this on your checklist of things to do as the club leader. So with that, Raghavan, let's go ahead and skip to the first slide, and I'm going to pass the baton over to Shell.
Great. Good morning, everybody. We are in for a great time today as we once again explore the mysterious world of grants. Our goals today, so that you take away, you understand the different types of grant that we can fund and what we can't fund, how the district receives our funding. We'll touch on that just a little bit when we start talking about timelines and how that impacts when you can start grants. What we have, we'll spend a few minutes talking about how you get some matching funds out of the DDF pot for your global grants if you're interested in doing some international work. Rajavan will spend a lot of time walking us through the district grants. We've found that very helpful when we can just walk through one. And the importance of certain things that need to happen on certain dates, like getting your goals into My Rotary. And as I said, Rajavan's going to walk us through a live grant application so you can see what's going on in DAC-DB.
I'm assuming that this whole presentation will be available afterwards, right?
I did see that Rajavan is recording it, so I'm not sure where he's going to store that, but our goal probably will be to get it out there to everybody who's participated.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So I'm preaching to the choir here about the foundation basics. Most of you have all been involved in the foundation to some extent, some to a lot of extent for many, many years. So you understand that the foundation is a very unique organization that gives us the ability to contribute and then pull those funds back into the district so that we can do work on an international basis and on a community basis. Rotary International has two boards at this point, the Board of Directors and the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees is the primary board that has to approve each of our district block grants as they come up. And they're also the board that reviews and approves any of the global grant applications that are submitted. You know, in the nonprofit world, there are charities all over the place that we can contribute our funds to. But one of the great things about contributing to the Rotary Foundation is that we know the majority of those funds that we contribute come back and are available for use globally and community-wide. 91%, so that's 91 cents on every dollar that's given is then made available to use through the grant processes. And that's a very little overhead. They've won a number of awards through Charity Navigator, I think, and Rudy, correct me if I'm wrong, we've been up there on Charity Navigator for the last decade with those high scores.
Yeah, we just hit year number 10, and I believe this year we were #1 in the world.
Excellent. So that's why our foundation is a little bit different. It makes it something to really be proud of. But when you start, those are just the awards and how those contributions are ranked compared to others. But when you start looking at the impact of what those awards, those grant funds really do, it just becomes an exponential awesome figure. So when we take those foundation dollars and we turn them into district grants, district projects, we have the Rotary Peace Fellowship, which Mike's going to talk about. We have some incredible global grant projects that are happening worldwide. In South America, Central America, the Caribbean islands, in Africa, in Europe, we have work that's going on all over the place. And we have had vocational training teams that we've had in the past when they went to the Philippines. And I believe the Farmville Club is working on one right now for South America. So a newer program that came out in the last year or so is called Programs of Scales Grant. Now, these are huge mega grants, and they're really looking at overhauling entire systems. So not just the wells that we might put into an African community, but rehauling an entire sewer and water system for a region within a country. So these are very large programs of scales. An example might be the Haiti projects, the Haiti projects that they're trying to coordinate so that everyone is cooperating together, and it is a huge funded program, grant scales. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars and not just tens. Disaster response grants, you know, we get called upon periodically when a hurricane goes through or devastation occurs within another district. Fortunately, not within ours in my known history, but it allows us to coordinate our responses and to be able to make a greater impact on that. And then, of course, Polio Plus, and Colleen's on the call. Colleen, you want to say something? Oh, not right now. Okay, so you know the there's Pat. All right, so Polio Plus is one of our big projects that we all work on, and those funds also come through the Rotary Foundation.
And I am here.
Okay, did you want to say something about Polio Plus? You got 2 seconds.
Yeah, make sure that we're still giving to Polio Plus. I mean, it's the big thing. So,
Okay.
You
Thank
can
you. All right.
tell Colleen 2 seconds about polio, that's never happened.
She did it. All right. So you know that if you don't know, in our district, Colleen is our Polio Plus Empress. So she keeps us helping that program tremendously and keeps us up to date on what's happening in the world with eradicating polio.
Sorry, can I take it over?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all right. Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Raghavan. I'm with Rotary Club of Innsbruck, and I'm glad to be part of the foundation committee. So as John mentioned, we have a great set of people trying to help you all get the grant. So hopefully we'll answer your questions today. So before we go further into district grants, global grants, I, for once, when I joined the foundation committee, I was very curious on where we are getting the money from. You know, when we talk about grants, end of the day, it is about sharing the wealth that we have. So how does the district get the funding? You know, it's typically called a share model. I'm sure many of you who are in the call have seen this years together, so you might have more knowledge than me. But just as I think about how is the district getting the funding, let me start with our donation. When we go to our Rotary website, be it My Rotary or Rotary International, when we click on donate, there are 4 broad options. One is called areas of focus, featured causes, endowment, and global grant. You would have heard Stephen in the past, GMSS always stress that, hey, choose the annual fund share when you're trying to make a donation, because that's the mode by which we get the money back to the district. So as you can see, there are other areas to donate as well, but those areas might not pass along the dollars to the district. Okay, so highly recommend your club and your members, when they donate to Rotary Foundation, choose featured causes. And among the featured causes, you know, I'm sure polio fund is very important, disaster relief fund is important, but when we want to spend money through the district, it has to be through the annual fund share. Okay, so once you choose annual fund share and make a donation, what happens is the money is not immediately given to the district. It is given to the district after 3 years. So this year or the next year, where we are trying to issue the grant, we are talking about the money Rotarians donated 3 years back. Okay, so after 3 years, the money gets split into 2 major buckets. One is called a district designated fund, DDF, or the World Fund. In the years past, we used to get 50% to district designated fund, but as of last year, that percentage has changed to 47.5. Okay. So there is also 5% operational expenses. I'm not privy of exactly where that is spent, but going further on the district designated fund, we as district then decide how much of the contribution from DDF goes to district grant or global grant. According to our RA policy, you can give up 50% to district grant. So, you know, some districts might say, okay, 50% goes to district grant, 60% goes to global grant. But in our district, we have done 50-50. So 50% of DDF goes to district grant, 50% goes to global grant. Okay. If you have any questions, as John mentioned, please post on the chat. We will get back to you. So DDF for the next year, where are we? So in 2019-2020, the district donated a massive amount of $515,000 to the Rotary Foundation. Obviously, you know, as it goes along the decision chain in terms of how much money goes to where, in 22-23, DDF is about $247,000, and for the districts, it's about $120,000. Just want to call out that this is a decrease of $20,000 from last year. And kind of piggybacking on John's earlier remark, this is what we have at the district, okay? And I'm sure, like every year, the ask from the clubs is going to be more than what we can offer. And this year, it's lesser than last year. So we had just to level set, I know many of the folks in the call have already submitted last year's grant. So just to level set that when you approach this year, it's going to be even more competitive. So please think about grants that make real impact, are sustainable, and has a Rotary marketing to it. Okay, we'll go through some of the expectations as to what we expect from district grants down the line. But please think about impactful, hands-on grants.
Hey, Raghavan, that's a very important message to our club leadership. You may point out that there's some awesome resources at Rotary International, exchange ideas, some other things that talk about projects that have been done all throughout the United States that are unique and different. And it may be worthwhile for club leaders to spend some time there, or now's a great time to do what's called a community assessment. Go out into your community and find out what is needed. Talk to those NGOs or other organizations that are out there trying to meet the needs, and start the conversation and figure out what exactly would fit perfectly within this DDF model and an application. Because if you don't start now, the deadline will be upon you shortly.
The key to know about the funding, folks, is we had about 150,000 this year and we ran out of money giving it to clubs. We could not fund everything 100%. So if we're looking at 122,000, then that's a significant smaller pot of money. And the process this year is going to be the best looking grants are going to get funded first until we run out of money. So you really want to make sure your grant application is the strongest application you can make.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Shirley. All right. So let's step into grants. I know Shall walk through the overall programs that are offered by Rotary Foundation. For today, that is the grant management seminar. We are going to focus on two types of grants and kind of dive deep into district grants. Okay. So the first and foremost question we get in every GMS is, hey, what is the difference between a district grant and a global grant? We just want to, answer that upfront, and then we'll go into details of what is a district grant, how to apply for it. We'll also talk about global grants, but we'll not go into the depth of global grants today. We will have a follow-up grant management session or seminar focused on global grant down the line. But today's focus is going to be extensively on district grants. Okay. So to keep it simple, a district grant is a smaller scale short-term project that can address an immediate need. Okay. And the project cost should be less than or typically less than $30,000. A global grant is in the other end, supports large size international projects with long-term and sustainable outcome. Okay. The dollar value they range typically from is $30,000 to $400,000. Okay. Shall also talked about something called Programs at Scale grant. That is a new initiative that helps fund projects that are more than $2 million. So just to keep that aside from global grants. Okay. So district grants and global grants is what we're going to talk today. Okay. Independent of district grant or global grant, any work that we do or should be doing should be around the Rotary's areas of focus. So there are 7 areas of focus. One was a recent addition last year, the environment, including that there are 7. So any proposal that you make, please make sure it is around this area of focus. It is a key item. And when we go through the DAC-DB, when you fill a dummy grant, you will see that it's a mandatory question. You have to choose the primary area of focus your grant is associated with. Your grant could be associated with multiple areas of focus, but at least choose the primary one. Okay. All right. Moving along, we'll first cover global grants and then we'll dive deep into.
Just a second on that too. I will tell you that it doesn't require a lot of creative thinking to put almost any grant into one of these areas. But if you don't think about it up front, the district grants committee that receives the application, if you're forcing them to do the creativity and figure out how it fits into one of these areas of focus, you are already behind other applications. So spend a little bit of time thinking why your application and your particular project fits into an area of focus so that they don't have to do the creativity for you.
And
Thanks, John.
sometimes when you're looking at area of focus, you might think, well, this fits into maternal and child health, and it also fits into community development or basic education. You don't need to document extensively each of those areas. Pick your primary area of focus and really explain to the committee why it fits in that area. You can mention the other areas that you believe, but you don't have to do a full-fledged detailed explanation on the district level. And if when you start looking at your area of focus on a global level, again, just focus on your primary area, because at a global level, each primary area has a grant specialist that has to do a review checklist. So if you check 2 different areas of focus, there's going to be 2 inspections of your grant through each of those different area of focus streams. So we always encourage you, pick your primary. Yes, it's going to touch on other areas, but just make life simple for yourself and really put all your details in explaining why it fits into, say, maternal child health kind of thing.
Thanks, Shel. All right, we'll start with global grants. Mike.
Thank you, Raghavan. If you could go ahead and.
Shel,
I
you
will.
are covering the global grant slide. Oh, Mike.
Yes, if you can go to the next slide. I'll be talking about scholarships.
Mike, 1 second. I missed one slide. So Shel, can you talk to this slide?
So global grants, and our district has done a number of really impressive global grants. Pat is willing to talk to you about all the work that's going on down in Haiti. Sue Carter in Farmville's got some amazing work that their club's been doing with Warmiloo infant incubators. So we've got some impressive clubs. The Virginia Beach has been doing, clubs down there have been doing some very impressive stuff with bridges in the past. Those are our humanitarian projects. So it benefits humankind. It makes this world a little bit better place. We can also, and Mike's going to talk about the scholarship for graduate studies. That can be a global grant. If you remember, Zoe Romano is probably our most recent grant supported scholarship that we've done. And then vocational training teams, where we either bring in folks from another area to learn from the experts within our region, or we send those experts out to other areas of the world. Global grants can be done in district, and our district is really interested in doing what we've sort of nicknamed reverse global grant, where the grant work is actually done in District 600. So we've been brainstorming for the last several years, trying to find the great project that we can find a partner, an international partner, to write a grant for it. The work would actually occur in Virginia. So I would challenge you today to put that on your little sticky note. Is there a project? It could be something like setting up the mobile health or dental or vision caravans that can go and help support those kinds of things. It can be, assistance for habitat type projects that would occur in Virginia. So we're really looking for something that they just take a bite at. And we've got several of our international partners who have said they'd be willing to partner with us on. So you're thinking caps on for that one.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant idea because the amount of money that can be generated through some creative partnering on the international side is significant. And I think Americans always have sort of this ego approach of we need to always be helping others, but there are people around the world, Rotarians around the world, that would really love to reach out and help others in the United States. And Kenny, this is a big on your list of projects you shared with me. Is there anything you want to say about that?
No, I agree with Shel. So Stephen Beer, I know, has looked at some clubs partnering, but as Shell said, it's a goal of ours to be able to have a global grant, international grant within the district. I think our members would really appreciate see the money coming back here. Not to say that we're not making an impact there in the world, but how cool would it be to be able to partner with somebody and have it within the same district, in the district. So thanks, Shell, for bringing that up.
Well, it also gives, Kenny, it also gives those international partners that we've worked with a number of times, it gives them an opportunity to do something really different. We've always been the international partner, but it'll give them a chance to be the international partner and come and visit project sites here. So it's just a great opportunity to give back. And those clubs that we work with around the world have expressed a true desire to be our partners on something that happens here.
Yeah, Shell, that's a good point. I think what you said is true. And what we've heard in a number of the zone and international training is, as you know, United States clubs, we're always looking to go overseas to help. And we forget sometimes that they're looking to come here to help as well, and that we need it.
You know, I gave the example, I can't remember if it was one of the districts to our north or on more toward the Tennessee side, but they did use a reverse global grant and they did fund that mobile dental clinic, and they built it in the back of a big truck, those container things. And so it was able to go around the region. They identified that was a need in that area. So they were able to identify the communities that would benefit from that mobile dental clinic. And they wrote the grant for the rig and the container and then the outfitting of all that equipment. So that's just one example that I'm aware of, but there could be tons of needs that are happening in some of our rural communities or some of our urban overpopulated areas that we could really sort of identify something. We would be looking for a club who would be willing to be that host club. And then at the district level, we'd be here to support you in the writing of the grant and finding the international partner and putting it all together. So if you have any thoughts or suggestions, I would encourage you to touch base with Stephen Beer. That's going to be his primary task for the coming year. Is that right, Kenny?
Correct. That's what he's agreed to take charge of. Looks like Colleen has a question or a comment.
Yes, as the international service chair, I'm working with the other international chairs around the globe. So I get requests from them all the time for partners. So I can send a message out to them as well.
Something that's new coming up this year, you know, in our district, we've been very unique in that we've been including our Rotaractors in the grant process as partners with us on our district grants. And the new thing that's going to start in July is our Rotaractors can actually write and lead a global grant process. So we've been trying to help them learn the grant process through our district grant process to set them up and to be in a good position if they want to actually do a global grant. So that'll be a new process this year. So if your club is working with some Rotaract clubs and you start talking about grants, they can not only lead and take a stronger role in our district grant process, but now they'll be able to apply for global grants. Okay, Raghavan. So the big pieces in the global grant that I wanted to touch base on, and we've talked about this the last couple of years, is how do you draw down the DDF to get the most bang for your buck? So before July of 2020, those of you who were working in the global grant area knew that you raised a lot of money from the club, and that matched at the foundation level for 50 cents on the dollar. So you raised $10,000 into the project, and we could put it in the budget and add another 5,000 for a match from the foundation. However, they had so much global grant work going on, they reduced that match to zero in July of 2020. And then in July of 2021, they reduced the dollar for dollar match from district DDF We used to be able to give $1 of DDF from our district, and it was matched by $1 of foundational giving. So right now, the complicated formula is any funds you contribute as a club are not matched at all. And district designated funds that are contributed to your project are matched at 80 cents for every dollar that we give. So what we've been doing in the last couple of years to really take advantage of the club's contributions is that we ask those contributions to be made in honor of the grant to the annual fund. And that then allows those annual fund contributions to be increased for our district. And then those annual funds, as we've already talked about, in 3 years, come back for us to support more grant work. I know this sounds really, really complicated. So the easiest way to do this is when you're ready to start looking at the budget for your grant is to reach out to those of us on the Global Grant Committee, and we will help you work through your budget. So we are replacing what you give to the annual fund with DDF, so you can still get that 80 cents match from the foundation. And it's a very simple process. There's a donation form that you document your club's donation. And then we sort of replace that in the grant with additional DDF to support that. So I know.
And I know that's probably confusing for a lot of folks on the
Clear as
call.
mud.
I think, and it's not because Shell did not explain it well. It's just one of those things that is tough to follow unless you've been in the trenches for a while. So the best advice we all can give is come up with a great idea, come up with the passion to serve the world with a great project, and then get in touch with Shell and members of her team so they can help you, because we have all kinds of ways to approach this. We have mentors that we can put out in the field to work with clubs to sort of nurture the idea. We can marry the idea with clubs that are already doing global grant projects to sort of help you understand where are all the challenges. So don't give up because there's a daunting process that you don't quite understand, or maybe the money seems overwhelming. If you have the right idea and the passion, we have folks in the district and folks at Rotary International that can work with you to try to make that happen. So I can only tell you, a lot of people stop at that application process, Shell. For some reason, if they've never done grant applications and they look at it, it's fairly simple, but still there's a lot of questions that are being asked that are not intuitive to individuals that have not done it on a regular basis. So please don't get overwhelmed by the process. We are here to help through that process.
We've got some questions. So David Mansfield, let's start with you.
Yeah, Shell, I think just a comment. I know we ran into this, I think it was last year. One of the keys to that donation in honor of a grant, you need to make sure that you have your grant number already identified when you do that, or it does get a little mixed up at Rotary. So that when you do it, you make it to the Rotary Foundation down in the thing, it's in honor of the grant, but then you need to be able to put that grant number in.
Correct. And that really is a tracking mechanism for us at the district. So let's say, David, well, I'll use the Chesapeake Club. They're working on a project last year. They had $10,000 in local contributions from various clubs around them. So what we did is we had each of those clubs send their portion of that $10,000 to the Rotary Foundation. And as David said on that form, in the past, you would just say, please contribute it to grant number 20, 21, 23. But now what we're doing is saying, please contribute this to the annual fund in honor of that grant. So that money goes straight into the annual fund, and we know which grant it's supporting. On the district level, that $10,000, we provided $20,000 of DDF. So that actually went into the budget, that went contributed to the actual grant, so that the foundation matched that $20,000 of DDF with 80% of that. So immediately that grant was $35,000 completely funded. So that's just a simple explanation of what we did. Test will follow, get your calculators.
Oh,
Great.
Yeah,
But,
the other side of that what we ran into is if you don't do it that way, if you make the donation directly to the grant, then those funds don't count toward those individual members towards their Paul Harris contributions and other things. If you don't go through
Correct.
the Rotary Foundation,
and you
then
get
to that.
zero
So we had to
match
go
for
back
it.
and we had to go back and get those reversed and corrected out of the process. It was kind of complicated to do it. So
But once we get everybody used to doing it on that form that way, I think it'll be
Yeah,
pretty
agreed.
simple.
agreed.
Colleen,
The
you
key, is
had a-
the key is everything needs to be done through the Rotary Foundation rather than any other direct method.
We have our
Correct.
first mentor, David Mansfield. So if you have questions, he will be more than willing to share with you the journey they went through and the difficulties. So again, we have individuals like David throughout the district we can match you up with to make this happen for your club. So never give up.
And Colleen, what do you have? What question do you have?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
You had your hand raised?
Oh, no, that was from before.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right.
And
Mike, passing to you.
Is there a
Okay.
special form for this donation?
there is, and it's the form that's always been there. Your club secretaries have probably been the person who's most familiar with it because they're the ones sending in individual donations to the annual fund, those kinds of things. So it is the
And
same
then that
form.
goes into the fund.
Um,
And
It's the same form, and in the second section of that form, and we'll add this to the foundation page to make life easy. How about that? But in that second section, you would check the box. Do you want this to go to the annual fund? Do you want this to go to a global grant? Do you want this to, but you really want to check annual fund, and you can type in there in honor of our global grant. And that really an honor statement helps us at the district level track that you said you were going to give 10,000. So we've given you 20, and oh, you did give your 10,000.
Shell, Mark has a great question in the chat box regarding when the money that goes to the annual fund for a specific grant comes back.
Anything given to the, now here's the deal. You're giving to the annual fund today. So our annual fund totals will increase 3 years from now. We're giving you the DDF today so that it goes right into your grant. So we're not making you wait 3 years to get your grant funding. So it's just a little shell game that we're going to play. We're going to put your money here so we can give you more money over there, so you get a bigger bang in your
Did
buck.
you hear that? Shell said it's a shell game.
Haha. And Shell, Sigur's got another really good question.
Yes. So you can do the contribution electronically, when you go to the page and make that donate now. As Raghavan mentioned earlier, there's like a couple of different boxes you can tap on your screen, and one of them will be the annual fund. And in the comment section there, going to write in honor of Global Grant 2021-23. That just allows us to track again on a district level that we've had those contributions being made. Because sometimes those contributions come in from Club A, Club B, Club C to make that whole $10,000. So it allows us to track it. So you can do it. Great point, Sigur. You can do it electronically. Okay, folks are coming up with tons of ideas for Stephen.
See that, gonna keep us busy.
Yep.
Yes.
So the bottom line is, when you go to start to plan the funds for your budget for your project on a global grant, give us a call and we will walk this through.
Shell, before we move on, maybe just highlight too the difference. I think Ragavan had a screen that talked about global and our community DDF and how it's split out. But it may be helpful because we spend a lot of time saying, hey, your DDF applications need to be done. We have limited funds, but global's a little bit more flexible for us. So spend a little time so that they understand how that piece of it works.
Well, we've got a couple very successful clubs in the district who've been writing global grants. So we've been over time able to gather up some templates, some examples. So it sounds like a big project to write for $100,000 grant, but actually it's a step-by-step, and we can say, well, here's a sample from the Farmville Club. Here's a sample from the Chesapeake Club. So you're not recreating the wheel. You're not starting from complete scratch. The most important piece to any grant project, whether it's district or global, is doing that community assessment right up front to figure out what the heck do we really need to be doing with this grant. And over the last couple of years, those community assessments have been looked at much more stringently by the foundation board. So that's the real key. If there's work to be done, whether it's district or internationally, is to really start with that community assessment. And that's
and the carryover aspect on the global versus district.
So we don't lose our DDF on the global side immediately. We have a couple of years if there wasn't that giant need for it. So last year, again, we had the $150,000 around for district grants. We had another 150 on the global side. I can tell you we didn't spend all 150,000 to support global grant work. So there's a little bit of dollars there that are coming forward to add to our 122. So whenever we come up with that great project, we have sufficient DDF to support most of the grants that come through the global track. But it has to be, you have to talk with us in the front end so we can reserve that money, because you just don't know what else is happening throughout the district. We could blow through 150,000 pretty quickly if we get some big projects that happen. So we want to make sure you get your spot in line, and we're holding that DDF for you for your project. Yes, Farmville has already put their bid in for their chunk of the DDF.
All right, thank you, Shell. Is it fair to say we will have a detailed session on global grants in upcoming months?
Because we're going to talk a little bit more. So bring your question, keep posting your questions.
All right, Mike. Scholarship.
Okay, good morning. Pleasure to be with you this morning. I want to talk about two types of scholarships that are available through Rotary. One is the Global Grant Scholar, and that's where local clubs have to come up with funds to support a young person who's studying for a master's degree. And the other is a Peace Fellow, which is fully funded through Rotary International. And now's the time for planning, and even a year ahead of time. But should you be interested in supporting someone on a master's degree program, feel free to contact me, and we can get things started and make sure the person has the right background and is eligible and so forth. If you're going to go use a Global Grant Scholar, as we've been talking about, it now comes under the global grants, and a club must fund up to $15,000 for the Global Grant Scholar, and that needs to be approved by John Padgett, our district foundation chair, before we even get started. So checking with me, checking with John is the first process. As the person fills out the application, both applications for the Global Grant Scholar and the Peace Fellow Scholarship are on Rotary.org, so they can It's a centralized process. We have to give the approval first at our level, at the district level, before the student can apply. So they just don't apply on their own. Deadline is this May 31st for the submission. And again, if it's a global grant, the subcommittee would interview the individual with the endorsement of the local club. And then the final review, it's reviewed by our district subcommittee. That would be with myself, John Paget, generally our past district governor or a governor-elect is involved with that, and one or two other Rotarians in the district. We do an interview and final interview with both types of candidates. For the Peace Fellow, it's forwarded to Chicago by July 1st. Decision is made, and we know in November who is the recipient. With the Global Grant Scholar, it's done just a tad earlier. In both instances, these are world competitive processes. So, and I want to get into the type of individuals that apply. So if you want to advance that, please, Raghavan. So the whole idea of the Rotary scholarship program is to build a network of future leaders in our world community. And as John mentioned, I became involved with the scholarships about 10 years ago. And I've been excited or impressed by the passion and the energy that these individuals bring. Shell had mentioned that one of our candidates, for example, in the Global Grant Scholar was Zoe Romano. Zoe Romano was a graduate from the University of Richmond, and she received her master's degree there for the Global Grant Scholarship with the support of the Rotary Club South Richmond. South Richmond had to, and I'll get into the funding on that again a little bit later, but she studied in 2 countries in Latin America. And the scholar should be an improved master's program, of course, in another country. And they should have several years work experience. Both the Global Grant Scholar and the Peace Fellow study program should be aligned with Rotary's area of focus. For example, if it's a Global Grant Scholar, it would make sense to be economic development or economic literacy. And of course, for the Peace Scholar, peace studies and conflict resolution. The funding for these scholars can be complicated, but with the Global Grant Scholar, the club needs to come up with funds of up to $15,000, and that's what the South Richmond Club did. And then that was matching funds were done by District and Rotary International. So the young ladies program was over a $30,000 program, and this started about 4 years ago. It concluded all the paperwork on it about a year ago, for example. So, and she had a special connection, this young lady, a special love for Rotary, service, this energy that I mentioned, giving back in the community, and the South Richmond Club recognized that. And we're willing to support her. Today, we have to balance that, and I've been a past president of a Rotary Club of Richmond, so I understand that. Do we give money to a water project or a bridge or to funding for books to a particular school versus one individual making an impact in the world? And so you have to make that decision. And but there are in other parts of the world we may see more of an interest in doing that, for example, than we might locally, for example, or in District 7600. But it is available, and I urge you to take a look, your club to take a look at an individual, and if you're interested, start talking with me about that. For the Peace Fellow, one of our recent had several candidates over the years, but most recently Ross Wood was with the Rotary Club of Norfolk. Was supported by that club. He studied at the University of or Bradford University in the United Kingdom, and it was fully funded. And today, a fully funded Peace Fellow can run $75,000, $80,000, as you're probably not surprised for a master's degree program. And again, these both types of programs are master's degree programs. Okay, would you move to
Hey,
the
Mike.
next one?
Mike,
Please.
just to interject, individuals that participated in this global project, Global Scholars, it impacts their life forever. And I can tell you that I have met so many individuals that will tell me Rotary changed my life through this particular program. And I think that clubs sometimes lose sight of it because we are focused on one individual. But, with this world edginess and distrust, having individuals that go to other places in the world to study next to individuals that they would never have known otherwise is a very powerful tool to develop relationships and efforts to reach across the world in a peaceful way. And I think that the thing that you really have to sell with these scholarships is it's not an investment necessarily for tomorrow, immediately tomorrow, but it is a future that we're building, and it's a future for Rotary because these individuals have fond memories of Rotary, the Alumni Association that we have in the district. A good chunk of those had experiences with the Scholar Program. I know I've got a member of my club that clearly, Julie Kiesling, who Mike knows, says that it changed her life. She got to go to Italy. She did all sorts of things, and she is a committed Rotarian to this day. So sometimes it's a difficult sell and because you haven't seen it, but talk to somebody that's been through it and they will light you up.
Thanks, John. And this shows you the impact. This is developed by the Rotary Peace Center and applies to Peace Scholars, but it also can, you can see global grant scholars may study in different areas of the world as well, but this is for the Peace Centers. And there's 7 Peace Centers. The ones in blue are the yellow are the master's degree program. For example, our students, most recent students, have studied at the University of Bradford in the United Kingdom. It's about a 12 to 16 month program. There's programs in Sweden, Japan, Australia, Africa, and Thailand. Duke, UNC, US students cannot study there. You have to be students from other countries, but that's a rather amazing program. Myself and others have attended the conferences in April there, where Peace Scholars present their plan for peace for their country. And for example, a recent one I remember is a young lady, although we no longer see the bloodshed in Northern Ireland, she still talked about the indelible mark that war and conflict still leaves on that country today. And you hear people from all over the world talk about that. There's 2 there now. You can get your master's degree. The other is getting a professional certificate. So a professional certificate is geared towards people generally in their 30s or 40s, and they take a short break. About 3 to 6 months to study in Africa. There's a new program that's just developed, or in Thailand, and they meet professionals from all over the world. This Peace Network, there's over 1,500 alumni from the Peace Centers, and that's making a difference. And that's been for about the last 15 years. It's slowly growing, and all of these are first-rate universities, first-rate programs that are dedicated to peace and conflict resolution. So with that, let me end. These are scholarships for students, the Global Grant Scholarship and the Peace Fellow Scholarship. The Global Grant Scholarship, the local club needs to dedicate funds to that, and it's matched by the district and Rotary International. And the The Peace Fellow is a fully funded grant. So if you see a young, dynamic person who's been in the field for several years and wants to give back to their community and service, please get in touch with me and we can talk about it. Thank
Hey,
you.
Mike, you may mention it is extremely competitive. We've had candidates that you've actually weeded out before they got to the final process because you could spot them and realize they may not be competitive. But I forgot the number. I just saw it the other day, but the number of applications is astounding, but they can only take so many. That's why they opened this professional development certificate program, because the master's program was very, very difficult to get into. We had some very good candidates that got passed over for a number of years, and sometimes that's frustrating, but it is an amazing Rotary program. There's few other organizations that can really sort of trumpet a program that's dedicated to world peace in a way that's systemic, that involves a process that hopefully will make a difference for this challenged world. So, do you recall those numbers out of curiosity? How many applied and how many were accepted?
Usually there's several hundred each year, and out of that, they only select about 35 students. So it is extremely competitive. And then students, then we are expected to make sure people are eligible going forward. And our committee makes that decision. I don't make that decision myself. Our full committee says this person's worthwhile to put forth, and we go from there. Very good, Raghavan.
Hey, thanks, Mike. All right, we are at halfway through our seminar, and we're gonna dive deep into district grants. Okay, so the next session is going to be all in all district grant. Towards the end, we'll have a live demo of how to enter a district grant. Let me put mic on mute. Okay, yeah. So let me get started. So just a recap, early on, I'd given an explanation about the difference between a district grant and a global grant. So we'll start with what is a district grant. It's a small scale short-term activity in your community. Typically does not take long to plan and implement compared to a global grant. It can be implemented in your home community or abroad with a partner club. So just underline abroad with a partner club because we have sponsored district grants for a need in another country. Okay, it should target the same 7 areas of focus as a global grant. So I'm assuming you had already gone through what the areas of focus are. I don't want to call them out. So the clubs are eligible for $5,000 each with a 10% match. And up to 5 clubs can partner together in a project. So that means to the max, you can ask $25,000 to the district, assuming there are 5 clubs and each of them is asking for $5,000.
Hey, Raghavan, it's a good point, but the Rotaract Interact Club, it may be helpful, and maybe Rudy or someone else on the call can talk about what's the best way to partner with the Rotaract Interact clubs and why it's so important that we try to do that as club leaders.
I think the Fluvanna club there, Rudy and Catherine's, their club has had that Rotaract partnership for the last 2 years on the grant process. So maybe Catherine, you want to talk about how your Rotaractors are really engaged in that process.
Yeah, so what we've done is we've used the Interact Club to help both fundraise and providing labor for the projects. So the current project that we've got going on that has been stalled by the weather is we're putting in a parking lot at the Parks and Rec Park here in Fluvanna County, and we're going to be using the Interact Club to help build that parking lot. So that's what we think is a good way to build capacity with a small Rotary club like ours, especially a small Rotary club where the average age is 74. It allows us to continue to have good hands-on projects without stressing out our more mature members.
Is it really true your average age is 74?
I think we're up to 74, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Well,
May
th-
may I say
We
something
did
here?
get a 34-year-old this year, though.
all right. Somebody wants to speak and I can't, whoever it is, go ahead.
Yeah, this is me, Adib. I think the value of coordinating with interact clubs as well as Rotary clubs is more than just financial. It is vitally important, in my view, that we get them involved in the work of Rotary so that they will continue as Rotarians in the future, and that thus we will add to our membership portfolio and get people to see the value of Rotary beyond and above being a university student or a high school student. Thank you.
So
Um,
fun fact for your application process, though, if you are including a Rotaract club or an Interact club, you really have to beef up that section on how the club members are going to participate in the project. You need to really outline what the Rotaractors are going to be doing, what the Interactors are going to be doing. And if it's a Rotaract club that you're partnering with, that we're going to talk in a minute, but they also have to sign that MOU. If it's an Interact club, you need a statement of commitment from their faculty advisor saying that, yes, we're in this project. So you can't just put them on the application and draw down the extra money. You really have to outline their role in the project.
That's a great point, Shell. And I also want to stress, and I don't know if we have any AGs on the call, but we have a lot of smaller clubs in our district. A lot of times smaller clubs say, I don't want to get involved with the district project. So much time and work. We only have a few hands that can sort of help out. And so they never pursue one because it seems overwhelming. The ability to combine with other clubs is your opportunity to get involved with the district grant process and make an impact in your community. And also it's a great membership tool. So again, please contemplate, talk to other clubs, get everybody to collaborate in the application process, and you can do some amazing things in your community. So this is a great tool for membership and for community impact.
And I think, Alan, I think your question is about the match. Is that correct? So Rajvan
Yeah, it
mentioned-
is.
Okay.
It is. Sorry, I was muted. 'Cause
Perfect.
I'm babysitting, helping babysit my grandchild. It gets a little noisy. Yeah. So this is what's on the screen with the slide that's on the screen. Is that the amount of money that's available, you're saying, or is that amount of money that our local club needs to raise, plus a Rotaract needs to raise $2,500 or $1,500, and the $1,500 by the Interact?
No, so I'll use Rudy's club as an example. They've been doing their Interact club projects jointly. So they're able to draw down $5,000 max for their club and another $1,500 on top of that because of the extreme engagement of their Interact club. So their total project now can be $6,500.
Okay.
But the match is still going to be 10% of that. So now they've got to come up with $650 from for their project.
So each club has to match it at 10%.
Yeah, but here's the deal. Here's where we offer incredible flexibility. We don't care where the 10% comes from and how you get it. If you want to make your Rotaract club come up with their own 10%, okay. If you want to make the Interact club do a fundraiser and raise $150 for their portion of it, great. Or if your club just says, we're not messing with all that, we're stroking the check for $650. We don't really care where the 10% comes from. It's just a requirement of all of you collaborating. At the end of the day, there's going to be a 10% match for that in total, that total DDF award.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
Shell, if I could,
just a moment. Yeah.
Ooh, that got a lot of
add
comments.
something to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So effectively what you've done is you've taken a district grant project that is, when it's fully funded, was worth $5,500, and adding an Interact club to it, you've now taken it to $7,200 because you've got that extra $1,650 on top of it. So it is a really great way to leverage the district grant process. And just to remind folks, you don't have to have a $5,000 project to get a district grant.
Correct.
You can have a smaller project and it's okay. And Mark has his hand up.
Mark.
First of all, I want to give you, to reiterate what you said, Shelda, I appreciate the district's flexibility. We did a district grant along with the Rotary Club and a few other clubs to put some a structure and building for and bleachers for Spark in Richmond, Virginia. And one of the nuances, though, I'm curious about from the MOU, I remember it was a little tricky to get the Rotary Club to sign off on the MOU because they weren't recognized in the Rotary system. So they had a real hard time doing it electronically. Do you know if that's been resolved? That was before they were officially, I guess, added as members. Is that process now easier so they can easily sign it online, or just some additional information on that would be great?
Well, unfortunately, across the board, our MOUs are not signed online. And that's been a challenge.
Okay.
We know it's a challenge. It's a DAC-DB challenge. So we are so old school. You print out the paper copy, everybody signs it, you upload it to your DAC-DB grant module. So for the Rotary Club, you would do the same thing there. They would print out the MOU, they would sign it, and whoever the grant person is for this project would help upload each of those MOUs. It's really no different than when you're doing a multi-club grant project, because each club has to have an MOU signed and uploaded into the module.
So what we did, we signed something online. What was that? Was that the application? Is that different than the MOU?
The application is all electronic online.
Application, okay, that's electronic and MOU's paper.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, but we know that it's a challenge to have a paper MOU. We'll accept electronic signatures on a PDF document. That's fine, but that document is not a fillable online submit kind of document at this point.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, many of the questions and the details that Shell shared, we have successive slides to cover it. So give me a few minutes, we'll go through the slides and we'll have good amount of time for questions.
No problem.
Yeah, but do post your questions on the chat, so in case we don't get it, we'll definitely cover it. So what you have on the screen is our overall life cycle for a district grant. Just want to clearly call out a few dates so that you are aware of some immediate dates that you need to focus on, as well as down the line dates that you need to be aware of. So we have divided the life cycle into 5 broad phases, starting with preparatory work. We'll discuss in detail about what goes into a preparatory work, what goes through each of the phases. But do mind that you can start now. As John mentioned a few times, you can start performing some community assessment right away. Okay, we'll cover a bit about where you can get those details and so forth. And then there are a few nearby dates. You might want to work with your existing club leadership to close out some of the grants. We want to make sure that any grant that is ongoing is closed before you can apply for your next year's grant. Okay, so May 15th is our goal, so that the foundation team can review all grants. The grant process is going to be a very competitive one, especially this year when we know we will likely have less funding to give out. Okay. So what we do is the grant chair develops the district spending plan, which outlines each of the grants and submit it to the Rotary International Foundation for an approval. When the International approves it, that's when we get the funding from the Rotary Foundation. Okay. So the key point is, please wait for us to inform you that Rotary International has approved our district's request before you start a project. Okay, we will kind of stress this in upcoming slides as well, because that's a very important factor. Is please do not start your project till you hear from the district committee that Rotary International has approved the district's request for a block grant. Okay,
Yeah, and there's several reasons for that, because if you spend money before it's approved, you cannot be reimbursed for that out of the district grant money. And that would be very disappointing if you made a major purchase required for your grant. It was before the grant was approved, and you'll have difficulty recovering that money. So please do not do that.
Thanks, John. All right. So the first phase of the grant life cycle is the preparatory work. Step one is each club on the project must sign a memorandum of understanding. It must be uploaded to the grants module in DACDB. If there are multiple clubs involved in a multi-club grant, each club has to sign separate MOUs. So if it could be a Rotary club, it could be intra-club, it could be a Rotary club, does not matter how many clubs join. If it's a multi-club grant, you need to have MOUs for each club.
And again, I jump in only to point out every year, at least when I was actively involved, there would be a joint submission, and one of the clubs as part of that submission had not uploaded an MOU or possibly had not sent somebody to a grants management seminar, and they got cut out of the application because they didn't qualify. So just because the lead club has checked all the boxes, you have to make sure all of the other clubs involved in the application have also checked the same required boxes.
Thanks, John. So the question, if you have a question around where can I find the MOU, it is on our district website. So after this seminar, we will send some links for you to look at. In addition to that, all the president-elects will get a copy of MOU at our upcoming PETs. Okay, so you'll get a flash drive with all the important information. The step 2 of the preparatory work that we would call out is, please make sure a club's foundation goals are entered in the Rotary Club Central by May 1st. If you're not entering your club goals by then, you will not get qualified for a district grant. Okay, so please make sure you do that. I have few slides to talk about how to do that. We'll go through that shortly. The next is someone from your club must be part of a GMS. In this case, you're all here. We are making note of all the attendance, so we'll make sure that your participation today is accommodated. Okay. We are also repeating this class on March 24th. So in case you know of somebody from your club who wants to listen again, or your sister clubs or neighborhood clubs, please let them know March 24th, a Thursday evening, is when we have a repeat show. If the clubs miss both these, they will have to take the online course that John and Shell and Rudy were discussing early on. Okay. Step 4, please document the community need. There are excellent tools and resources to help you plan and carry out your community assessment. Rotary International has a very good booklet on how to do community assessment. It is important to document this in your application. It helps the committee, that is us, like me, Shell, Mike, and others, to understand what you're asking for, right? So a community assessment is very important. So please make sure you call it out in your grant or the grant application. Okay. Step 5, for our district, we use DACDB to register applications for grant. It is all online. I know in the years past, we probably had some, physical documents mailed to the district office and so forth, but for last many years, all grant applications happen through DACDB. Okay. Some of your questions about Rotractors accessing a DACDB to submit a grant request. What we have seen is there are 2 broad types of Rotary groups. One is a community-based Rotary groups, and others are those associated with educational institutes. Community-based Rotary groups have worked with some of our Rotary clubs and got themselves added to DACDB, but that is not the case for all community-based Rotary clubs. So this year, or in Kenny's year, there's going to be focus on getting Rotractors into DACDB, registering them, and hopefully from next year onwards, we'll have them fully plugged in DACDB. Right now, there are few Rotary clubs that can access DACDB, but it is not across the board. So in case this year, that is in the upcoming year, you want to partner with a Rotary club, and if they are not on DACDB, Rotary clubs can facilitate it. Okay, so you will need to
point out Interact. We still, because of privacy issues and the fact that they're under 18, we will have more struggles reaching out to the Interact clubs. We'll have to do it through their supervisors or faculty coordinators, but we know that needs to be solved in order to get everything folded into our district activities.
And that's why, John, we've just asked for a statement of commitment from that Interact club, showing that they are engaged in this process and they're willing to work on this grant. And that's just another document that gets uploaded to support the grant application.
Thanks, John. Thank you.
Can we facilitate our club interact coordinator through that process somehow?
Yeah, what do you mean by facilitate, David?
I mean, well, meaning the point that, you know, in order to get the interact people in there, I mean, as a club member, they've got access to DACDB, obviously, and if they are a designated club interact contact person, can they register that on DACDB on behalf of the interact club?
Yeah, the nice thing about DACDB is all the folks who are working on the grant from your club have access to help you upload the documents and add to it and fine tune it. It's not one of those that only one person can get in and only one person can do. So if you've said that your Interact sponsor is a member of your club, then he does have access to DACDB. So he can take that part of the application, he can document that part and really fill out what they're going to be doing. And he can be the one who's responsible for uploading their letter of commitment.
Okay, yeah, that was what I was referring to. Thanks.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. To the question from Jeffrey about, you know, does only the league club have to have a GMS participation in a multi-club grant? Every club that wants to participate in the grant process, be it as a single club or a multi-club, has to attend the GMS.
So if the Prince George and Colonial Heights and Petersburg clubs are doing a multi-club district project, then each of those three have to sign the MOU and it gets uploaded into the grant module as the supporting documents.
Thanks, Shel. So one kind request is please make sure this year's grant is closed before May 1st. I know some of you are taking leadership role for the next year, but I highly recommend you work with your current year leaders to close out the current grant. Unless you close out the current grant, you cannot ask for next year's grant. Okay, so it is very important.
And again, it's in red because every year there's a club that seems to struggle with closing out the grant, and it's not overly complicated. Some of it is simple as just showing a check that's been sent out in support of the grant, and you got to just show that the money was spent in appropriate ways. So please focus, make sure you have somebody in your club or part of the grant that's tracking that and can provide that information when the grant needs to be closed out.
And John, we always get questions, and I've already started getting emails with this question. Do I have to wait till the grant project is completely done to do the final report? And the answer is no. COVID has presented a lot of challenges for us. The weather does, but the important piece is you've used the DDF, you've spent the DDF, you have the receipts for the 5,000 DDF that you received, but you just haven't been able to put the parking lot in as Rudy's project is because of the weather. But you've paid for the services, you've paid for the equipment or the items that you need to do that work. You can go ahead and write your grant final report and get that submitted and just document the timeline for actually completing the project.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to go a bit fast because I want to get to the demo as well. So the last point on the slide is no repeat projects. So time and again, we come across scenarios where the same organization, a similar project that we funded last year, the clubs are requesting again. We highly encourage you not to repeat projects because this year it's going to be very competitive. We want to make sure our district fund goes to as many organizations as possible, not the same organization for the same work that we would have done last year. Okay.
And the policy reason for this, because we hear from clubs all the time, gosh, it was a great project and it was making an impact. Why not repeat? Rotary International and their district does not want any one particular organization to overly depend on Rotary as its source of financial support. It's just a policy decision, and so we attempt to honor that, and it makes sense. Some people could disagree with that ultimately, but it's our task to make sure that we continue to find many worthy organizations to receive these funds and the impact of the DDF.
Well, and John, there's also that requirement in there that says the grants and the efforts have to be, quote, sustainable from the standpoint. If you do a repeated one, it kind of begs the question of whether the previous one was sustainable or not.
Yep, valid point, David. These are things that the committees will discuss and probably question you as part of the grant review. So if you have clear questions, clear answers up front, much helpful. Okay, so the next phase of our district grant is the grant submission. So we talked about preparatory work. Now moving on onto the grant submission. We want to put this slide out first. Though we want to make sure you write the proper grant, we want to start with budget, because this is where we always have some challenging questions from our clubs is how do they plan the budget for a grant? Okay. Our request is start your budget planning using a zero-based budgeting. That means you start with zero and build your budget as you add components to the project. You don't start at 5,000 and see how much you can get from it. Though the district allows you to request for a max of 5,000 per club, please don't start from that, right? You build your project. That could be some projects that doesn't need $5,000, but still make a meaningful impact, right? We also encourage strong partnership to potentially get a bigger bang for your buck. So you may increase the size of your district grant if you consider a project that includes other Rotary clubs, Rotractors, and Interactors. Okay, see this as a relationship building opportunity. The stronger our relationships are with each other, the greater the opportunity for us to have a meaningful impact. Okay. If your club has a partnering Rotaract club, please loop them into the district grant. By doing so, you can get an additional $2,500. I know Shell and Rudy probably explained, one such grant that was issued last year. But do make use of Rotaract clubs. Have them involved. You can request for $2,500. Do note that any participating club, right, be it Rotaract, Interact, or Rotary, put together, that should be a 10% match. Okay, so if a Rotaract club is asking for $2,500, a 10% match is $250. That could be raised by the Rotaract club as part of their fundraising, or the Rotary club can cover it. So you're not dictating that Rotaract club should bring in money or an Interact club should bring in money. We just want them to be involved as long as the clubs can cover that 10%.
Also, I would point out and emphasize a competitive year because of the amount of money that's available, and based on some priorities of involving Rotaract, Interact clubs, applications that use those clubs as part of their grant application may have a slight edge. It's not going to mean that if you don't have them that you get excluded, but I think that if I was going to make a submission, I would seriously look at trying to partner with Rotaract, Interact clubs, because that is an emphasis of the upcoming year, and I think it is something that would add value all around.
Thank you. Just to highlight, there's a max of 2 Rotaract clubs that can partner together in a project, but we have not defined the limit for Interact clubs. So you can have as many Interact clubs added as part of your projects, but we are setting some limits for Rotary clubs and Rotaract clubs. Okay. All right.
But again, this is real critical. There is a section in the application that outlines who's going to be doing what. And that's really, if you're going to have multiple Rotaractors or Interactors on the project, you really want to document, make it clear to the committee what their role is going to be, that they're not just on the application to draw down additional funds.
Thanks, Shel. Yeah, so that takes us to some more additional information about grant submission. Please don't mind us repeating. Please target a project within Rotary's areas of focus. That is a Rotary International expectation. So please make sure whenever you think about a district grant, it should align to one of the 7 areas of focus. Okay. Next is very, very important. When you write a grant, please document how the project is going to be sustainable. This is an essential component of the grant. Sustainability has been part of our district grants for many years now. This means how the project will be, how can it sustain or live after the initial implementation? Like who will keep it up, who will maintain it? Many times we come across a grant request for one-time purchases. Even though we might be okay with it, but we would like to understand how are you going to replenish it, right? If Rotary is getting that one-time activity this year, how will that organization, use such one-time aspects down the line? Who will help them, right? So all these things, please think about it. Sustainability is going to be very critical. In addition to being an impactful grant, we will definitely, go into the depth of how this grant will continue to evolve or sustain in the next few years. Okay, this is where we see so many grants struggle, but we are here to help you out. We plan to have some form of workshops or office hours, early part of May, where you can call us, talk to us as you prepare your grant. You can ask us questions. If you don't want to wait till May, you can also talk to us right away. But we are here to help. Please make sure the grant is sustainable. Okay. The next point is all clubs must be official with RI. Check on your Interact club to make sure they have their current charter up to date. And if you need help, our district secretary is there to help you with it. Okay, our district secretary has a list of Interact clubs, and I think we do have some details on the charter. But if you have more questions, if an Interact club is still official or valid, please talk to our district secretary. Okay, Rotary clubs and Rotary clubs will need to complete the MOU, and each MOU will have to be uploaded to the DACDB. Okay, if Rotary clubs don't have access, that's okay. They can send it to the Rotary clubs, and the Rotary clubs can upload it on their behalf. Okay, we are, as mentioned before, right, we are still working to bring our Rotractors into the fold of DACDB. I think we'll have some progress this year. We will keep you posted. Okay, so till such time, as a Rotary club, please support your sponsoring Rotary clubs, or even if you're not sponsoring a Rotary club, please support other Rotary clubs. Last point, in a multi-club grant, the lead club needs to complete the grant in the grant module before May 15th. This is important. Many of you have worked in multi-club grants. It could be that the request is stuck with one of the participating clubs. Probably an email signature was not obtained. As a lead club, please follow up with the participating clubs, and it is your responsibility to submit the grant in DACDB for district approval before May 15th. Okay. All right. So the next phase thing that happens behind the scene, it's called the district approval phase. So what happens, why are we expecting you all to complete by May 15th? We kind of answered it, before, but I'll reiterate it. The district grant committee is not the final authority when it comes to saying that you're going to get a grant. What the district grant committee is doing is reviewing all the requests from the district and taking your request forward to Rotary International. So the Rotary International Foundation, or the Rotary Foundation, is the deciding authority whether the district will get money for the grant requested or not. So what happens is the clubs, you all request for a grant, it comes to the district grant committee, we review it. In many cases, we can't provide grant for all the requests. So whichever applications we could provide, we write on your behalf what we call as a block grant request, and we submit it to Rotary International. And Rotary International takes few weeks to review it. They might have some questions for us. So far they have never rejected any such request from the district, but that's because we are doing the right due diligence upfront. The Rotary International then informs the district committee saying that, yeah, you're good to go. The block grant is issued. And then the district committee would share that information with our clubs. Okay, I just want to explain that there is a good chunk of work the district does after you submit the grant. And that is the reason why we are very particular about May 15th. Okay. A big caveat, do not start the project before receiving the grant money from the district. Please do not do that. All your receipts should be dated after you get the grant money from the district. Okay. In the years past, or based on our experience, that should be happening about August 1st. August 1st is when, the district would be communicating or issuing the money to the clubs. So we will have a firmer date later on, but typically August 1st is when we would notify the clubs about what happened with Rotary International. Is the club good to go or good to start? So please plan your projects between August and May next year. Do not start your project before August if possible, or it's not possible. You must not start a project before you get the money. Okay. All right. So project execution, again, underlying that, you must wait for the Rotary Foundation to approve your district spending plan. It generally happens around August 1st. Sometimes what happens is, once you start to work on a project, you come across a scenario that there is a change in the scope of the project. It could be that the partner that you're working with, is asking for more or asking for less. You want to change the scope of your grant. In such case, please do reach out to the district grant. If the scope changes, I think it should be okay. But if it's a major scope change, the district then needs to inform Rotary International about, hey, there is a change in scope of a project, and get the Rotary Foundation's approval as well. Okay, so please keep us posted if there is a change in the scope of the project, which can happen. In last year, one of the clubs came back and said, we don't want these many dollars because our scope reduced, which was good actually. We were able to give that money to some other club. So please do interact with us and let us know if there is a change in the scope. Okay. Maintain all your records, maintain all your receipts. It is very, very important you keep a good copy of your receipts. I'll talk a bit more in the phase called grant closure. But when you are executing a project, keep a record and start uploading information into DAGDB as you work through the project, not towards the end of it. Many times we might miss some pictures, we might miss some checks, we might miss some receipts. I highly recommend getting into a habit of periodically uploading information to DAGDB and not wait for the final report that happens in May of next year, right? Yeah. Last but not least, the grants is a great way to create a public image in our community. So do not forget your public image plan. As part of the grant application, there is a specific section where we explicitly ask you, how are you going to create a public image or create awareness in your community about the grant? So it is very important you write or let us know what are all the steps you're going to do to create public image. Okay. So please take loads of pictures, create videos, make the message known in social media. If you need help, we've got a district public image team, right? Extensive knowledge team here to support with you on public image needs. So please do not hesitate to reach out to the district public image team. They are there to fully help you out. And the work that we do as part of the grants and foundation is a great avenue to market the good work Rotary does. Okay. All right. The last phase of a district grant life cycle, we call that as a grant closure. That's when all the clubs are expected to submit a final report. If you are a lead club of the multi-club grant, it is your responsibility to make sure the final report is documented in DB. Okay. So if you need to work with other clubs, please do it early on. Please maintain all the copies of invoices, receipts. We want to make sure how you have spent the money that you got from the district. Okay. When you start a grant application, you will have some idea or a thought on, hey, these are my needs. This is where I'm going to spend. But when you actually implement a project, the dollar values could go up or down, because you might start with a quote, a tentative quote from a vendor for purchasing something. But when you actually go to purchase it, the cost could have gone high or low, right? So keep good copies of all your invoices and receipts. That should reflect in your final report. So the final report will thoroughly look at your budget. What was your income? What was your expenses? And we want to make sure the district funding is used in the best possible way. Okay. All right. So after the clubs are done submitting the final report, the district also needs to submit a final report to Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation. Then, lets us know, yeah, you're all good. That's how our district gets to become eligible for the next year. Like, say in Debbie's year, there are clubs that are working on district grants. Only when they close all the grants and only when the district is able to confirm that with the foundation, the clubs next year in Kenny's term, that is you all, can become eligible to get the money. Okay, so there is a good amount of work that district does after you are done with your final report. All right, any questions so far? Good. Phil, you want to cover the conflict of interest? You are muted, Phil.
See, we hadn't said that yet today, so we had to. Okay, so global grants have always had the conflict of interest requirements as part of their application process. About 2 years ago, we began including it right up front in the GMS trainings for our district grant process. And that really just says that if any Rotarian, Rotaractor, or I guess Interactor even too, has a connection in this project, you need to just document it. So if there's some way that their organization or their other company would benefit from the project, you need to document it up front. It doesn't mean that the grant won't be funded. It just means we need to be very clear about how this project may benefit one of our Rotarians' other organization. So an example is, and I'm not going to remember the club, but one of the clubs down in the Tidewater area has a member who is part of a university. And their project this year included a collaboration with the university on doing something. So that doesn't mean we can't do something at the university just because that Rotarian works there. It just means we clearly need to identify what our Rotarian from the university's role will be in the project. The role that that person really cannot have is that they would be the lead grant person and be responsible for the finances. That would truly be a conflict of interest. But if they're part of the planning team, they're part of the folks who are boots on the ground, we're not going to consider that an extensive conflict of interest. But in that grant application, you're going to really document who's the connection and what role they will have in the grant process. So we're really just looking for making sure that the Rotary funds are used to support community and not just my pet projects.
Okay. Hey, a good example, the question would come up. Say we've got an Interact club that's involved in one of the ones, and let's say it's involved with either Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or something, and members of the Interact Club are members of that organization as well. How does that play into that process?
So again, it doesn't preclude you from doing that project. You would just want to identify that we have interactors who are parts of our local Boy Scout and Girl Scouts. And in fact, they're probably the ones who brought the project to you saying, we'd like to do this. And so you really identify, you're not putting them in a position where they're the ones controlling the money. And you really just identify what role in the yes.
Well, and I
Okay.
would stress, do not get too wrapped up in this, because clearly if you have a project and you meet people and they're excited about Rotary because of the relationship, you wouldn't want to discourage them from becoming Rotarians, and then they felt maybe we'd be
No, I
cut
agree.
off from future gifts. So all this is a way is identifying
Agree.
there are some bad examples we could share, and they would be obvious to anybody on this call. Most of them, we have a lot of YMCA members and we do a lot of YMCA projects. All of those are fine. It's just on the very fringe. We like to at least be able as a district to identify the ones that look a little sketchy and nip them in the bud before it gets out of hand.
Agreed. Okay.
So if in doubt, go ahead and just document what the relationship is between the Rotarian and that organization. And then if the committee has questions about it, we can do that on a follow-up.
Got it.
Yep. So Michael had a question. If a Rotarian is a financial supporter of a nonprofit, do you need to know? Yeah, again, just put it in the application that Jane Smith is on the board of the whatever shelter, because she's probably the one that helped you identify the true need, but you're not going to put Jane Smith in the role of being project lead and give her the checkbook for the project.
Agreed. Okay.
Thanks, Shell. I think that's the right thing to do. Yeah, 4-way test. All right. Moving on. So a few immediate deadline. We have called this out in a few other slides as well. So before May 1st, please make sure your club's current grant is closed. Before May 1st, please add your club foundation goals in Rotary Club Central. You don't need to wait till May 1st. You can do it even now. Before May 15th, submit the grant application. And again, please don't wait till May 15th to submit the grant application. We always run into a scenario where clubs try to submit on the day before or the day of the due date, and somebody in the club is not near a laptop to complete the e-signature or sign it off. So every now and then we run into tight scenarios where clubs take the last step on the date of the deadline. Please avoid it. Please have some internal deadline like May 1st or May 5th and not wait till May 15th.
Because
Well,
we've had a lot of
especially this
clubs with technical difficulties too, and they're like, oh, we're trying, and it's not working. So you have to build
Well,
in your,
especially this year when you figure May 15th is a Sunday.
yeah. So and I think with the smaller pot of money, folks need to know the deadline is the deadline. If you don't meet the deadline, there's going to be a lot of clubs ahead of you in line for their share of that money.
Thanks, sir. All right, key takeaways for each club. Kind of summarizes what we discussed so far. No MOU, no grant. If you don't attend a GMS, no grant. If you don't enter your goals for the next year by May 1st, no grant. If you don't submit your application by May 15th, no grant. If you don't submit your final report of this last year or this year before May 1st, no grant. Repetitive projects, no grant. If the projects are not going to be sustainable or impactful, no grant. So please don't feel bad if the committee says no later on. We couldn't be louder than this. This year is going to be very, very competitive. There are going to be grants that might not, get the money. We don't want your clubs to be that. Please make sure you do the right things, meet the deadlines, give as much information in your grant as possible, make it an impactful grant, make it a sustainable grant. It will relieve a lot of pressure onto the committee later on. Sometimes the committee gets a lot of tight remarks after the review, but do know that they're all your peer Rotarians who are trying to volunteer and do the right thing. Okay. Last few things: do not start the project before receiving the grant money, and please use the grant money to make a difference in your community. Okay.
Hey, on that second to last point, question: when you say don't start the project, and I know John mentioned this, that doesn't mean we can't start doing planning. How does that relate to any potential fundraising that we're doing before that? As my understanding is, the key is by not starting the project, it means we can't expend any actual funds that we would expect reimbursement for or anything. But are we precluded
correct,
from doing
David.
fundraising?
Hey, no, you
We're
can
not-
plan, you can prepare, you can do all, it's just you don't want to spend the money that you hope to get reimbursed for before you have the approval of RI.
Agreed.
So
Okay. Okay.
that's-
I just want to make sure of that, because particularly when you start including Rotaract or Interact people, given school years and stuff like that, you know, if you don't start doing some things before school gets out, then you lose them for the entire summer in some cases, or the ability to continue to engage them during that period. And if you get funds in August and then not having them available then till October becomes somewhat problematic.
Thanks, David. Thanks, John. We have 10 minutes left. The next couple of demos. So my Rotary this morning is not functioning, so I'm going to just share some screenshots.
My Rotary is down for maintenance today.
Yeah. So I took some screenshots. This is how you would enter your club's foundation goal for next year. Go to my Rotary. From there, navigate to Club Central, Rotary Club Central. On Rotary Club Central, on the left pane, you see a section called Goal Center. Please click on it. Once you click on it, make sure you choose your club and the appropriate year. And then you'll be able to edit the foundation goals. Okay. Please make sure you select a particular year that you're trying to edit. Sometimes it defaults to the current year, so you might be surprised, hey, why am I not able to edit? You might want to make sure it is the next year, and then click on edit, and then add the foundation goals. There are 5 foundation goals. The clubs are expected to fill all the 5. You know, the 5 are pretty straightforward, so it's up to each club on how you are trying to achieve the goal. But make sure all the 5 goals are updated. Okay. To repeat, May 1st is the due date for updating the club goals, club foundation goals specifically. Okay. All right. Next is a demo of grant module. I know with 5 minutes I might not be able to cover completely, but I'm going to try and do my best. Okay. Okay. So before I start walking through how to write a grant, I thought it'd be beneficial to look at a finished product and kind of work backward and say, you know, what needs to be done. So Neva, I'm going to use your club's ongoing project as an example. So this is a project from, I think it's a James River Satellite Club. So they asked for a grant to create a stencil or draw stencils in an elementary school used as a learning material for the school kids. And these are the pictures that Neva and her team has taken as part of how the grant is progressing. Okay, so point number 1, please make sure you take as much pictures as possible. Point number 2, do not wait till grant closure. Upload them as you take it. Okay, it's always good for the district to know that, yeah, there is some progress being done. Okay, so this is the project, and I'm gonna quickly go through the information that Neva and team had put together for this project that will give you an indication on what goes into an application and what the committee reviews.
You got to be proud of this.
All right, now I'm happy. Okay, all right. So I just opened that particular grant. So it's for James River Elementary School. Obviously, the org year is last year. It will, in your case, it will be 2022-23. Which city, state, country? When are you targeting to complete this? This is the area of focus that we have been highlighting. Please make sure you choose a specific area of focus. And then provide a high-level description of the project. Okay, you are going to provide a detailed description in another section of the application. but this description should reflect what you're trying to do, because this is the description that I use when I'm filling the Rotary International's grant module. You're all filling that DB. What happens is, after all the committee review happens, or after all the committee reviews assessment happens, I would need to take all this information and put it into Rotary International grant module. And this description is very important. So please make sure the project description that you call out explains what you're trying to do. So once you fill these details, there are a few tabs. You need to call out the clubs involved. So in this case, it is James City County Satellite Club. There could be other clubs that you want to partner with in case of a multi-club grant. Choose those clubs from the list, add them to the right side, and they will become the clubs that will be involved in this grant. Next section is contacts. We want to make sure there are sufficient contacts related to grant. The district might have questions at any point. It could be during the grant review, it could be afterwards, it could be during the final report. Please make sure you have more than 2 people from your club whom we can talk to. Okay, in this case, Nevas Club, I put 4 people, which is a really good number, because some of you might not be reachable sometime. We can at least reach out to somebody else. So at least have 2 to 4 people from each club participating in the grant as part of the contact list. Okay. Next is the application. This is where we go into the details. Okay, this is where all the information we shared so far, you need to spend energy on. Start date. Okay, please make sure the start date is after August 1st, and make sure the completion is before May of next year. You don't need to wait till the end of completion. If you finish the project early on, you can go ahead and add information. You provide the primary contact information from the club, that is the primary club. Okay, so sponsor club primary contact. So if it is a 5 or 4 clubs coming together, we expect 1 lead club and provide a 1 primary contact. That person is going to be the go-to person for the grant. Okay, then describe the project objectives and activities. So in this case, Nevas Club is trying to build an outdoor learning experience. She is providing information that they've already engaged the school principal. They've got the buy-in. This is how it's going to benefit the students, and so forth. Okay. Next section talks about community need and sustainability. And just look at this description from James City County Club. They've clearly articulated the need of the community. So this particular school has about 76% of school children who are in the disadvantaged section. Okay, so that is a good amount of community impact in doing this grant. However, what Neva probably did not call out is how are they making it sustainable. But what she has done is she has called that in the next section. So we as committee members, when we review it, we won't decline your grant because that information was not in a specific section of the grant. If the information is covered throughout, we are good with it. Like in the section called Act Rotarian Involvement, they have clearly called out how Rotarians are involved. This is very, very important. We are going to stress a lot on this. Please make sure there is hands-on involvement from Rotarians. We don't want to have a grant where we just issue a check to some other organization. Please don't expect that grant to be approved. We will be looking for how are Rotarians, Rotractors, or Interactors getting involved. So please call that out. Okay. So in this particular grant, Neva has called out that, hey, Rotarians are involved, and the PTA is going to refresh and maintain this stencil going forward. So we at least have some commitment that there is some entity that is going to manage this going forward. We don't want to do a one-time activity, right? Obviously, the stencil's paint needs to be replenished. There is a PTA that's going to do that. Okay. Publicity plan. Please call out how this is going to be known to the world. It could be adding a Rotary logo beside the project. It could be us publishing it in a news channel. It could be us publishing it in a newspaper. So you could think of any different channel to publicize the work that you've done. Okay. The last section talks about if you're partnering with any organization, like cooperating organization, please provide the name. So in this case, Neva's team had partnered with a specific elementary school. We want to make sure the partnering organization is in agreement. We don't want to get into a situation where we approve a grant, and when somebody goes to implement a grant, the partnering organization does not entertain their set of responsibilities. Okay, so please make sure you are clear with this upfront with the partnering organization. Most of the grants that we have come through will involve a partnering organization. Okay, so don't hesitate if you're partnering with YMCA, if you're partnering with an elementary school, if you're partnering with the healthcare system, it's all okay. Just make sure you have some Rotarian involvement. Just make sure it's sustainable and it makes impact to the community. Okay, let's quickly go through. We are nearly reaching our time. Next is budget. Budget is where you call out the line items, both income and expenses. In this case, the total project cost is $4,965. Please note, Neva's team did not work backward. They didn't start with, hey, I have $5,000, let me see what I can do. No, they work forward. That is, hey, for me to paint, I need this many dollars. Let me ask this much from the district, and my club can provide dollars. As you can see, it is not necessary that the clubs will always have to do 10% match. You can do more. So in this example, 30% of funding is coming from the club and 70% is coming from the district. Okay. Documents is a section where you upload all your documents. So any pictures that you take, any receipts that you get, please upload it into DACDB. Please do not wait till the final report. You might miss it. So as soon as you get some receipts, pictures, please go ahead and upload it. Okay. What happens typically is once you submit the grant application, it will go through your club membership for their signatures. Okay. So first and foremost is when you start to think about writing a grant, please go to DACDB. Under DACDB, go to district grants. Once you select district grants, let's go through that. District grants. Change the org year to next year because you are writing a grant for next year. Okay. And under the left side, you have something called admin. Please make sure you have people identified to provide club signatures. You should at least have 2 people from your club providing a signature for your grant. Many clubs miss this and realize this later. And by the time it could be due to the deadline, or it might be that their members are not reachable, do identify at least 3 or 4 people from your club who can provide the signature. Okay. What happens is somebody will write a draft application, submit it. It would first go to the club for club signatures. Once the club members provide the signature, it would then come to the district. Okay.
Raghavan, you made a really great point there that you can have 3 or 4 or 5 of your club leadership or project leadership identified as signatories, because each grant signing is going to require 2 from each club. So if it's just a single club, it's just 2, but if it's a multi-club, 2 from each club. So if one of those folks are out of town and you can't be reached, the grant can't get signed and you might miss the critical deadlines. But if you have, your club secretary or your PE on there as well, then they can pinch hit and sign off on the grant when it comes through. So that is a critical piece that has snagged so many clubs at that last minute.
Yeah, and Raghavan, if I could just add one piece to that. If you're doing a multi-club grant, make sure that your partner clubs, if you're the lead club, make sure your partner clubs know not to submit the grant. Because what we had the last few years is we had multi-club grants where not all the clubs signed it, because one club signed it and then they saw the button submit grant and they submitted it, which causes us to have to go in, unlock the grant, and then go back and get signatures all over again. Really time consuming.
Yeah, it doesn't just, I mean, when we have to unlock it, it wipes out all of the signatures. So if you've got 5 different clubs, you're trying to get 10 people to sign and you're the 7th and 8th club and you mistakenly lock it, and we start all over with number 1. We did that one year 6 times with one project and strangle somebody.
So the main club is the only one who provides the signature position or permission, correct?
Person who is actually building it in the grant module will go in and identify all of those signatories. Rudy, can the other clubs put in their own signatories?
I believe they can once if they go in to edit the module. That's what we've had them do in the past, is that they choose who they want to have as signatories.
Yeah.
But the key thing is to have multiple people who can fill in if that one person is, if Neva has taken a cruise somewhere and we can't find her, we need that signature today. There should be 2 or 3 people who can step in and sign for her.
Yeah, Brenda's got a really good comment in the chat box. She's lived this.
Yeah, I know we are slightly over time, so I'm gonna wrap with one final comment, and then I could even take a video of this and share the video link. So last comment is, what happens after you add your club signatories? Click on Club Grants View, and from here you can start a new grant request. Okay, we looked at an example of how Neva's club did it. It's the same, but just that this is a fresh start. Okay, I'll stop sharing here. Any final questions before we wrap up?
Very, very good job. Very comprehensive. Some interesting thoughts. We could talk about it offline, but how to make this available on the district website may be helpful for us to get our frequently asked question list, because it sounds like Rudy and others that have been involved the last 2 or 3 years, you've seen where the problems have occurred. So it may be helpful for us to jump ahead, identify those areas, and maybe a frequently asked question, but resources we can provide. Also, Raghavan quickly mentioned the workshops related to the applications, because I think that's another resource the district's going to provide club leadership to get this done and get it done on time.
Yeah, quick plug-in for the workshops. We started off this last year where the district grant committee would be available in the evenings for a couple of weeks to answer any questions that you might have. The question could be around how do you do the budget. The question could be around how do you phrase your grant. Any questions that you might have, you could ask us, you could join the Zoom call and just ask us those questions. We will definitely send out those time frame and meeting invites. So in case while you're working on a grant, you have some questions, please feel free to join those workshops. Thanks, John.
Perfect. I'm going to wrap up because we do like to honor everyone's time. It's hard to predict exactly 2 hours because we like the interaction. We strive to have the interaction. But Raghavan, thank you for your leadership in pulling this together, your technology savvy that made it possible. Shell, as always, amazing. Mike, for your years of passion on the scholarships and for the individuals that want to pursue them and the clubs that are trying to raise the money. Thank you for that. There are other legions of people that are involved in the foundation committee. I encourage anyone on this call that has an interest in being involved at the district level, let me know. There are some folks that I look around, it makes me smile. They've been part of the foundation team for decades, and they still do amazing things. I will tell you, in the course of this, I've received 1 or 2 private messages from men that want to get involved. So please let me know. It's an exciting part of what Rotary does, and it's a very critical part of what the district tries to accomplish every year. So with that, Raghavan, unless you have anything else to say, I'm going to conclude this particular grant management seminar. We know who's attended, so we'll make the record. so that we can match it up to make sure that if you want to apply for a grant, that you can check this particular box if you are from a particular club. Onward, and let's do great things in the world. Thank you.
Thank you.